what is up, Stranger Things fans? My name is Andrew, aka Noezone, and today I'm going to be giving y'all my spoiler review of Stranger Things Season 5, Volume 1. And I can't even believe I'm saying that right now, to be honest, because it's been 3 long years since Season 4 dropped. And Season 4 was actually my introduction to the show. Not saying that that was the season that I watched first, but the hype for Season 4 finally got me to start the show. And in between Season 4 Volume 1 dropping and Season 4 Volume 2 dropping, I binged the entire show just in time to watch Volume 2. And ever since then, it's been one of my favorite shows of all time. I still think the pinnacle of the show is Season 1. It just plays like a mini series. I can literally recommend it to anyone and they can just stop there. But I still really enjoy seasons 2 through 4, so I definitely do think season 5 has a quality ceiling to live up to. And y'all are about to find out if it lived up to that quality for me. So without any further ado, let's get into this review. But starting out with the things that I'm positive on in season 5, volume 1. And the first thing is gonna be the original character pairings that they're going with. And I remember the Duffer brothers were talking about a while back that they were going to do this before the season even came out. But actually seeing it done in season 5 just gave me so much joy when watching, because it really does feel like it's been forever since we've seen all the kids just in one place together facing a threat. And that's exactly what they're doing in this first batch of episodes. And in addition to all the kids being together again, we have the young adults with Nancy, Steve, Jonathan, and Robin, and seeing what that dynamic's like with Robin being in the equation. And now that we saw Steve and Nancy in season 4 almost like kind of having this rekindling thing, and having Steve and Jonathan just compete over Nancy was kind of funny. But I do like how they didn't just do that in a very cliche way, but they made it to where Steve was actually just doing it because Jonathan is not showing up in his own relationship. And he's been kind of a bad boyfriend lately, especially with some of the stuff he did in season 4. Like not telling Nancy about getting accepted into the same college, which I am wondering if that plot point ever will come back up, but I doubt it. And I like how Jonathan is wanting to propose, which is kind of confirming that they're not going to go with the Stancy route, which I was actually really afraid of in season 4. Because while I do love Steve and his redemption arc, I don't want him to get back with Nancy. It just kind of feels like you're undoing a very good romance that you set up with Nancy and Jonathan, and I don't want them to undercut that. I think another positive I have is going to be the acting. I think a lot of the actors are all bringing their A game this season, especially with the return of Sadie Sink as Max in that Henry Creel dream world, because as soon as she came back, it was like she was stealing the show once again, because she was a major highlight for me in season 4, and Max was never one of my favorite characters in season 2 and 3 of Stranger Things, but season 4 and her performance in season 4 just really elevated her character up the rankings for me. So seeing her get a way to come back while she's in a coma was very nice to see. I also think Noah Schnapp has been doing really good as Will, even though he doesn't really do a lot of acting outside of Stranger Things. And with them giving him a bigger role, I'm glad that he is living up to that task for me. I'm also positive on the story that they're going with. I actually kind of like that they did sort of a reset from the almost cliffhanger ending of season 4, because I feel like if we would have just picked up right after that, after all this time in between seasons, it would have felt a little weird. But I also think it gave the show time to breathe and set like a new status quo before ramping up into the things in episode 3 and 4. Another thing I'm going to praise about the story is that it really does feel like they are paying attention and taking every dangling plot thread and tying it back into this final season. And by they, I mean the Duffer brothers, because I have been seeing a lot of hate online for them bringing back number 8 or Callie into the final episode of this batch. And I really don't get that criticism, because season 2 episode 7, The Lost Sister, was the most useless episode of the show by far, and them tying it back into the finale only makes the show better in hindsight, especially if they do good things with Callie or 8 in the future. I also like that Vecna's stealing all the kids, almost imitating what Papa did with having a batch of kids with powers and him wanting to reshape the world, and doing it in his own Vecna way, even though he was very critical of how Brenner was in season 4. It almost adds a more hypocritical element to Vecna's villainry. I thought all the episodes in this batch were directed very well, especially with them bringing in Frank Darabont, who is an all-time great director. And there was just some really well shot sequences. I remember there was a oneer in episode 4 right before like Vecna showed up when all the Demogorgons were attacking, and I was really enjoying that. I just wish it gone on for longer and they did a little more with it. I also like the scenes where Will was seeing through the Demogorgons and the way that would like phase in and out, and just those POV shots were really cool, even though I still think it raises a bunch of questions of how the Demogorgons even see when they don't have eyes. And the way Will was seeing was through eyesight. So it's just kind of funny, honestly. And that's one of those questions I really don't think the Duffers are going to answer. And speaking of like the Demogorgons attacking and Vecna's entrance especially, the action in this season so far has been stellar. Like for example, the Duffer brothers have been doing a lot of interviews lately, and one of the things that they said that got released after the batch of episodes released was that Vecna's entrance was inspired by Darth Vader's entrance in Rogue One. And you can totally see the inspiration because Vecna's aura when he showed back up and some of the kills he was doing on these soldiers were crazy. I remember there was this one really unexpected kill where Vecna just like shoots vines through this guy's face, and me and my girlfriend watching both like were like, holy shit, because you just don't expect a really gory kill like that in Stranger Things, but I welcome it as a horror movie fan. The CGI and practical effects are also a positive for me, just like they are in every season besides season 4, because the CGI in that season was it was kind of rough at times. But so far in season 5, I have no complaints of any of the visual effects, so I won't really stew on them too much. The score and sound design are another thing that are just one of those constant positives in Stranger Things for me. I really haven't had a season so far where I haven't liked the score and I haven't liked the sound design. So it's also just as good as it is in previous seasons here. The editing in the show has always been a strength, and in this season it's no different. So that's definitely another thing I gotta add into this positive section of the review. And I feel like season 5 volume 1 only got better as it went along, so episode 3 and episode 4 are my two favorites. Episode 3 just had a lot of action-packed moments in it and a lot of story progression. And episode 4, for very obvious reasons, with the whole thing with Vecna's entrance and Will having powers now. I remember that was like the only thing in the season me and my girlfriend had not predicted yet. So that was definitely a very shocking and hype moment for us. The characters this season have also been a huge plus for me. Like I was mentioning earlier, the Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan dynamic I really like, especially with the angle that Steve is going at it from and not in a menacing way. I like that Jonathan is ready to propose to Nancy. Murray's role in this season is kind of cool, even though I wish there was a little bit more of him. Just him being the supplier, and he's had some really funny moments, especially with that scene with him and Dustin. I think the two characters that have surprised me the most this season though are Mike and Will, because Mike is acting like season 1 Mike again, and I fully appreciate it because I really did like him as like the protagonist of the show in season 1, but I feel like ever since then they've just been shooting under that quality. The quality of his character writing, I mean. And Will has just gotten so much more to do this season, which is just great to see because I feel like every single season it was like, okay, what's gonna happen to Will now? And it feels like he's finally getting some W's, so that's been very nice to see. And I also like Robin and Will's dynamic with one another, and I know I was talking about the original character pairings, but this is like my favorite new character pairing because she literally accidentally sets off one of the coolest moments in the show with her talking to Will about something else with him coming out, but she accidentally just gave this man powers and aura. And lastly, but definitely not least, we have delightful Derek, and he's one of the best new characters that we've gotten in the show. He's just so funny in every scene, and he's just chewing up scenery. Like the scene where he's popping the kids with the ruler to go see Mr. What's-It literally had me laughing so hard. I'm hoping they don't do the thing that they do with most new characters and kill them off, because I'm a big fan of delightful Derek so far. But moving on to my mixed section of the review, and I don't have many criticisms of this volume so far, but there are a few things that I'm just on. And one of those has to do with the characters, and that is Joyce and Hopper. And don't get me wrong, I like how Joyce and Hopper are finally together, and they've had some really cute dialogue so far. I just feel like we could have explored them actually being a couple now a little more. It kind of feels like something that just kind of got glossed over, to be honest. But I do want to say that I'm really enjoying Hopper and Joyce's scenes with their kids though. And that moment where Joyce gets tricked by the flux capacitor thing was really funny, especially as a fan of Back to the Future. That's my favorite movie of all time. And Hopper being in the Upside Down with Elle giving a lot of one-on-one time has been really good as well. I just feel like to start off the season, we could have gotten a little more out of them. Also, it kind of feels like you can't kill Hopper and he has plot armor because of his big fake out death in season 3. So there aren't a lot of stakes whenever he's doing stuff. I will say I was very scared for Joyce whenever she walked up to Vecna and got thrown to the side. I thought for sure Vecna was about to kill her on the spot right there. Also, another character that's kind of in a weird spot is Eleven. And it's kind of because she had so much character progression last season that you can't really match that in season 5 in my opinion. So I'm okay with her being the way she is right now, but it doesn't feel like she has a whole lot to do besides use her powers and go on like a training arc. It's almost like she had to take a back seat for Will to get the front seat of the show, which has worked in the context of this story, but 11 does belong in the mixed section because her character just hasn't been that interesting this season so far. And the last character that I'm feeling a little mixed on this season is Dustin, and I have no problem with him grieving over Eddie and his reaction to that event because that was very traumatic, and that was a friend that he made that was more similar to him than Steve. So it makes sense that that would lead into him and Steve having more issues now that Eddie's gone. But I'm hoping that Dustin and Steve can get that resolved by the end of the season. That's assuming that neither one of them get killed off, and please, those are the two characters that are my no-goes. Don't kill Dustin or Steve, please. But I think once Dustin gets out of this grieving stage, I think he'll go way up for me this season, hopefully being a positive character for me. But for right now, I'm feeling a little mixed on him. But another thing that I'm feeling mixed on in this first volume is the pacing, because this season is definitely starting off a little slow, but I like the way it does ramp up into episode 3 and 4, just having a lot of action. But don't get me wrong, I really enjoy the first 2 episodes, but I feel like episode 2 and episode 1 end and start with something big happening, but the stuff that it's like sandwiched in between just kind of like slow it down a little bit. But the last thing in my mixed section of the review is going to be the emotional value, because I'm just not really getting there yet with a lot of scenes. And I understand they haven't really killed anybody off yet or done a whole bunch of sad stuff, but I just really haven't felt like the emotional investment that I felt in the other seasons, except with the last like 20 to 30 minutes of episode 4, where I really do feel like the show had like hit its stride again. So I think if the rest of the season can keep that up, then I will definitely be a lot more invested. But it kind of felt like I was at an arm's length from a lot of the stuff happening before that point, at least from an emotional level, and just like really making me feel the stuff that's happening on screen. And that's gonna do it for our mixed section of the review. I have no negatives, so I'm not even gonna go over a negative section of the review like I usually do. But overall, I am really enjoying season 5 of Stranger Things so far. I'm really hoping that volume 2 and the finale keep up that quality that episode 3 and 4 especially set up. I'm just hoping that they don't kill off some of my favorite characters, but if they do, I'm sure that we'll get a good reasoning for it. It's just really gonna hurt in the moment, and I feel like me putting the emotional value in the mixed section of my review is really gonna bite me in the ass whenever volume 2 and the finale come out. But we'll just have to see. I'm not really gonna do a scorecard for the first volume of this season. I'm gonna wait until the finale to do that, so I have the full season to look at and give a proper rating to you guys instead of just rating a piece of a story. But y'all let me know what y'all thought of Stranger Things 5 Volume 1 in the comments below. Make sure you leave a like on the video if you enjoyed my review. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more content just like this. Share the video with a friend if you think they would enjoy it as well. And as always, guys, it's been Noezone. Peace.